you're a regular watcher or haven't been living under a rock, you'll know that getting onto the housing ladder is extremely hard work as a first-time buyer. So the government comes in with certain schemes which attempt, and let's emphasize that word, attempt to help us realize our property ownership goals. And one such scheme is called shared ownership. So hello and welcome back. I'm Jake, a final year economics student, and I try to break down some of the big financial issues facing us so we can all feel more confident around our money. So shared ownership allows first-time buyers, so people like me, to purchase a certain percentage, so a share in a new build property. So if I was to purchase one of these properties, I'd only need to pay a mortgage on the portion of the property that I own and then rent on the remaining share to a housing association. And because I only pay a mortgage for the share that I own, the deposit I need is going to be typically much lower compared to the deposit I need when purchasing outright. So I have the option of increasing my share during the time I'm in the property through a process known as staircasing. And in most cases, you can staircase all the way to 100%. So when you have sufficient savings, you put down more money in order to own a larger share of the property. If you do get staircase all the way to 100%, then you would obviously no longer be paying any rent. But let's take a look at what it means in practice with some numbers so we can get a better understanding of that. So let's take a 300,000 example home. Typically, you need at least a 10% deposit, so £30,000, and the maximum mortgage you'll be given is 4.5 times your salary. Although this is changing, but let's just take that as a given for now, meaning you and your partner will need to earn at least £60,000 between you in order to get that mortgage of £270,000. But with a shared ownership, you can buy a 25% share of this home, meaning the value of your share will just be 75k. So a 10% deposit would be 7,500. And the rest of that share is financed through a mortgage. And then obviously you pay rent on the other 75%. So you can see how it makes it quite a bit easier in terms of the deposit and the subsequent mortgage affordability payment. And the same goes for when you sell a shared ownership property. You'll only receive a share of the sale price in proportion to your own share of the property. So fantastic. This scheme allows people to start building up equity in a home sooner than they otherwise could have done, thereby benefiting from the increase in capital value properties have historically achieved by paying off a mortgage on a portion they own and rent on what they don't own. That is obviously not going to be the full story. So today we'll be going through 3 very big problems and risks that you will need to consider when using this scheme. So home buying itself is notorious for various fees that are extracted from you at certain points in the buying process and sale process. And this only gets worse under shared ownership. So obviously you have all the usual fees at the point of purchase and sale. But on top of that, each time you want to staircase, you'll entail a load of fees. So one being the valuation fee. So each time you want to increase your share of ownership and staircase up, you're going to have to be paying a surveyor to value your property for you before you then contact the housing association that owns the other share in your home, as additional purchases need to be made using current market prices, not when you initially purchased. So secondly, legal expenses, as the staircasing will involve changes to your existing lease on the bit you don't own, which will require a solicitor. And then you're going to have to pay mortgage fees again. So the staircasing process can be a bit of a ball ache to sort out. But the second big issue you're likely to face is actually trying to sell your shared ownership home. So when selling a shared ownership property, you can only sell to people who meet the guidelines and want to take on a shared ownership property. And that certainly isn't everyone. So instead of selling to the whole UK housing market of potential buyers, the pool of available buyers interested in your property is going to be a lot smaller than selling a normal property. So this will naturally make it more difficult and be a far longer process. And there was actually a BBC Panorama documentary about the shared ownership scheme, giving examples of people that have literally become trapped in their home because they simply cannot find a buyer for it. So if your situation changes, such as a new job or starting a family, you do need to be wary of the inflexibility of this arrangement because it is closely linked to the third big problem. You're at the mercy of the housing association every step of the way. So you have to meet the guidelines to even be eligible for the property in the first place, but that's just the start of the issues. The housing association have first refusal on your property, meaning you have to offer your property to the housing association first before you're able to put it on the market, because they might want to buy it in full. As the housing association has this first refusal, this will slow down the selling process, as they have 8 weeks once offered to provide you with an answer as to whether they want it or not. And that is going to extend the sales process for even longer. And you have to continue paying rent right up until the property sale is completed. You can't just move out at the end of a normal tenancy like you do with a fully rented place. And just like any landlord, you'll have to ask the housing association whether you're allowed to change anything, have pets, etc., despite owning a portion of the property. So effectively, by entering in a shared ownership property, you're exposing yourself to all the negatives that come along with owning a home. So that's mainly the lack of flexibility to move, which is exacerbated by the fact that the property is extremely difficult to sell. You've got exposure to mortgage products, which can change, and all the negatives that come with renting a home as well. Annoying landlords, leasehold agreements, and rent increases. So taking all these points into consideration, it is not something I would personally want to use, and I'm definitely avoiding it, but that might not be the case for your circumstances. And like I said, it's just one scheme available to first-time buyers. There is the Help to Buy equity loan, which does show more promise, but again, it has some downsides. So do check out my video on that above me now. But until next time, thank you very much for watching.